let's jump into this first story. And I'm using the Daily Beast on purpose. Because the Daily Beast, as you know, is fake news. The Daily Beast, let me slow down. Here's the story. Cops still can't explain agonizing hour-long wait to storm Uvalde classroom. Distraught parents can be seen literally collapsing into themselves and wailing in anguish as officers refuse to answer their pleas to storm the building. We hear about it all the time from conservatives. A good guy with a gun can stop a bad guy with a gun. Not when the police are being bad guys with guns, right? When they're using their authority and their power to stop a parent from going and saving their kids. When they went and saved their kids, one mother was able to go in and save her kids. Now I want to point this out. I'm using the Daily Beast because they are fake news. The Daily Beast is certified by NewsGuard as fake news. Proceed with caution. This website fails to adhere to several basic journalistic standards.
Shocker.
I mean, honestly, it is. Because you'd think the Daily Beast as an establishment outlet, they'd get cover from everyone. And they were called real news for a long time. No, they're fake news. You are fake news, Daily Beast. But when even the Daily Beast, fake news, is pointing out what was going on there and that cops weren't letting people in, we got a weird story. I mean, something's weird. I don't know what you guys think.
So look, I got to go to the Daily Beast too, because when I cracked the Russiagate code running the investigation for Chairman Nunes back in 2017, 2018, the Daily Beast outed me as a staffer and wrote a whole hit piece on me, which is unheard of when you're a staffer. You're not an actual member of Congress. You're just working there. And they called me a genocidal dictator. So I agree with you. The Daily Beast is fake news because I'm not a genocidal dictator. I'm just the son of a man who fled from a genocidal dictator regime overseas. So he was able to get me out there.
What dictatorship did he flee from?
Idi Amin in Uganda.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. Why did they actually use the words genocidal dictator?
Oh yeah, and they called me Torquemada.
What's that?
Wow. The guy from the Spanish Inquisition who was a genocidal dictator who slaughtered millions of people.
And why? Because you were calling out fake news?
Well, because I was reporting that, we have proven Hillary Clinton, paid for it, the campaign. We were getting going and it was big news. And they were like, we're going to take this guy out. I didn't think anything would actually come of it, but then there's been a million pieces after that. But they started it. Fake
well, so what do you guys think about what was going on with these parents? This seems weird to me, right? Well, I will point out, some people have said, look, you don't want a bunch of angry and confused parents rushing into a building. It can get chaotic, especially if they're armed.
I had a moment of empathy when I was watching the video and I heard the screaming parents, where it was just like, if I was that, and all of a sudden I felt like because of bureaucracy, I don't have a chance to save my kid, and then find out that the kid was killed, is like, the cops are doing what they were instructed to do, which is don't let the people run inside. They might get hurt. They might cause more damage. But my God, when it hits the fan, it's like the rules are off when your children's lives are at stake, and you need to do what you got to do to save their lives. That was hard to watch.
Yeah, I was reading about this and I was like, I literally cannot imagine what it'd be like to stand there and think that my kid literally might die within the next few seconds if I wasn't to jump in and do something about it. And for the cops to stand there and to tell me not to go in, I would lose it. I wouldn't be responsible for my actions.
Yeah, I spoke with somebody earlier who said that he had some contacts on the ground, and the reason for the delay is that the shooter had gone into the building, and they were sort of establishing what their protocols were going to be for breaching, which is a little different than this story, because now we come to find out that police actually took the time to go in and save their own kids, but didn't allow parents to go in to save theirs, or didn't make any real effort to save anybody else's. And I think it's sort of a travesty. And this isn't the only situation that we've had with the school shooting where there was a huge delay in terms of a police response. With Parkland, police were told to stand down. There was a long delay before any action was taken. You got one guy in there with a gun, and then you got, dozens of people outside. It seems like there would be some sort of protocol in place that would allow them to be able to go in and do something.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with law enforcement, right? Coming from a law enforcement background, you want your cop, that's why they sign up, to go in there. You establish a perimeter, all that stuff, but if there's a school shooting, get some bodies in there doing something. And I think that's the biggest complaint. You got to wait for the investigation to come out because it's going to take forever to get everything right. But my biggest question is, why weren't there a couple cops in there right away? Why? You
guys think that cops should be armed? Or not cops, rather. I'm sorry.
I was like, wait.
Well, for sure, yeah.
That's not what I meant to ask. Teachers. Do you think that teachers should be armed in these schools?
I think if teachers want to be armed, why not? Because obviously they're going to have to go through some sort of training. You know, you can't just carry. But if somebody wants to carry, if they've proven that they're able to be responsible and that they have demonstrated a certain level of proficiency with a firearm and they're able to protect kids, you know, if they're carrying concealed, nobody's going to know which teachers are carrying and which aren't. I'm not for forcing any teacher who doesn't want to carry. But if you have somebody who is open to the idea and they want to be that person and they could be somebody that interdicts a situation like this, I don't see any reason why we should not allow that.
Simple answer, yes. It's not a question of teachers, it's a question of people. I think people should be armed. That's it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, I was workshopping this idea earlier today that I think that the only way to fix this gun problem that we have in the U.S. is to do it from the ground up. That means cultural change. That means someone who's going into a school or someone who's going in to rob a store, they don't know if the person they're about to rob or the person they're about to attack is going to be armed. And that's going to significantly dampen their enthusiasm for doing extremely criminal activities. Obviously, that's not something that the government can enforce, and we need to have a serious respect for guns. But, I hope we could get there.
I don't think so. Right now, the one thing that really bugs me about the whole issue is there's no real conversation, particularly from the left, on solving these things. They complain about people saying thoughts and prayers. Well, I don't think thoughts and prayers is solving any of the problems either. It's just kind of like I feel for you, which I don't have a problem with it. It's just, okay, great, sympathy, empathy. The left then comes out and gets angry and says, I'm sorry, I got to stop. Not the left, the liberals. The leftists like guns. Leftists or more revolutionary, they like guns. The liberals are like, we need background checks. And I'm like, okay, we got those. What's next? And they're like, no, we need background checks. I'm like, okay, we have those. That already happens. What's next? I don't think, what we hear now from the right is like we should arm the teachers. That's not going to solve anything either. And I'll tell you why. It may prevent, because some of these guys, some of these psychopaths might be like a teacher could be armed. That I agree with. But in this circumstance, cops were there. The good guys with guns were there. The parents were good guys with guns. The cops were. And the cops actually impeded it. The cops were supposed to be the good guys with guns. They stopped it. You look at Parkland, that security guard, didn't he run away? He got in trouble for that.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, I think we have deep-seated cultural problems where, you guys see Beto O'Rourke heckle the press conference on these kids. And I'm seeing, Democrat activists cheer for this, and I'm just like, come on, man, choose your battles. But what Beto did is a contributing factor to why lunatics do this. They know that you're going to get Barack Obama, that you're going to get Beto O'Rourke, and they will scream your name out to the world with your picture. So that's what they're thinking. They're thinking this is how people will finally know who you are, because they're sick, they're nuts.
I think
everybody agrees.
Jordan Peterson tweeted out earlier that we should not be saying the names of these criminals, these killers.
Yeah.
Just don't, because that's what the big part of it is. They want to be famous. They want it to be their final hurrah. And then if they see names get shouted out, that copycats might come up and do the same thing. Thought it was a good point.
Yeah.
Some people have mentioned what we need is cruel and unusual punishment for these people. And I'm like, well, you can't do that under the Constitution, right? But this is their argument is do something in such a way that humiliates them and makes them not want the attention.
The dude that ran up on Dave Chappelle with a knife, like a fake gun with a knife in it, yeah, they broke his arms or his hand. I mean, that was cruel and unusual what they did to that guy. Yeah.
Well,
you could say he had it coming and deserved it. I think you run up on stage at a guy with a knife, you're going to get your body broken.
But that's not cruel and unusual. Cruel and unusual is like a stockade, like taking somebody
chucking stones at someone.
Or burying them up to their neck and then having everybody walk by and piss on them is cruel and unusual.
Isn't it if you can like hold them and secure them, then if you kick them while they're down, that's cruel and unusual?
This guy, no, that's not. So you can argue cruelty if it's excessive, but excessive force is not legal. In the case of the guy with Chappelle, I think his arm got dislocated because they tackled him. They all jumped up and pinned him and dropped him to the ground, and his arm got messed up in the scuffle. If you attack someone and someone is using force to stop you and you get hurt, that's not cruel and unusual. If we capture these people and then, like I said, you bury them up to their neck in dirt and then everyone can walk over and spit on them, that is cruel and unusual. People have argued for one of the memes that goes around is a liberal guy who posted this, or people who post this, calling them tiny pee-pee shooter and giving them these weird names so that forever in history they won't be known by their name but by an insult. I don't know if that actually would work, but I get the idea, and I think they're scratching at the surface of the problem. These people know that every politician, everyone's going to say their name. I'm not going to say this guy's name. I'm not going to mention him. I'm not going to show his picture. But the media does all day, every day. And people tweet about him, and that's what they know they get.
I'm reminded of the oubliette, the ancient Middle Ages punishment. It was just basically a pit, and oubliette means to forget. And they would take criminals and they would throw them in the pit, and that was it. Never mention their name again. Maybe they got fed. Who knows?
Yo, that's one way to do it. Jeez.
It's harsh.
Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah.
I don't think it's coming back, though, unfortunately.
I doubt it.
Budweiser would probably sponsor it, but...
Maybe
Throw Sussman in the pit.
Yeah, man, let's do it.
I don't know. Those people that January 6th, there's people in solitary. I don't know if that's really an oubliette, but that's people in solitary.
That's basically it.
I mean, look, I was a public defender back in the day, and I argued for some of the worst people in humanity because they needed due process. And the same thing. It's like, okay, should you have a bond? Shouldn't you have a bond? While you're waiting trial, presumed innocent. And look, whatever your political positions are on January 6th and whether it should or shouldn't have happened, if you have a 60-year-old grandmother who has never committed a crime in solitary confinement or not given bond, there's something wrong with that situation. That means the judiciary has been politicized. And you're a year on from January 6th, and you have 50-plus people without bond, many in solitary confinement. I mean, all that does is makes them want to plead and get out. Plead guilty, not have the constitutional protections of due process and the presumption of innocence and the right to counsel. They just want to rack up political victories. I think that's my interpretation of what this committee's doing.
I think that the January 6 people is as close as you can get to cruel and unusual without jumping over the line in an obvious way. Keeping people locked up, keeping them in solitary, doing these things is like you mentioned. It's effectively torturing them. So you can get them to just give up.
That's it.
And it's all politically motivated, too. So it causes people to not have any faith in the system, which ultimately is bad for the country as a whole.
It's terrible. I mean, I've argued both sides, federal prosecutor, federal public defender. And I've just never seen any situation where you just blatantly chuck a bunch of people. I've gotten murderers and rapists out who were charged with those crimes on bond because it was the actual right thing to do based on the facts and the judge made a decision. You have people here with no criminal history who didn't commit a violent act, and they're being held detained.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.